Whoa. Greetings and welcome. My name is Jake Rayson. I am a forest gardener and a food forest gardener. I might actually stop streaming this and then start properly at 10 o'clock, to be honest, because the problem is you get the YouTube live streams and you need to edit them to make them fit. And I don't want to download it, edit it, and upload it again. So I'm going to start from scratch at 10. So this is just, that's a good idea actually. This is just a little preamble. So it gets to another 1 minute's time, and I'll start afresh. There we go. Right, let's do that. I've got various things to sort out. Extinction Rebellion, XR stuff. Tell the truth. Act now. Create a citizens' assembly. There's kind of things that that I have become more of the conviction that we need action immediately and not just kind of pretend action, real action, rather than saying we're going to, I don't know, the government really doesn't seem to want to do anything, to be honest, in the UK. Okay, 53, I've got to stop, let's start again. Greetings, let's see if that works. Greetings and welcome. My name is Jake Rayson. I am a forest gardener and a wildlife and food forest garden designer. That's my kind of official title these days. This is my regular monthly live stream slot. I'm talking about forest gardening, all kind of aspects of forest gardening, because there's an awful lot of them. And I am talking today about the garden design that I'm doing in Ceredigion, a local garden design for a Clifftop, and it's a really exciting project. It's a relatively small garden, about 15 meters by 15 meters, kind of irregular shape, and it's ornamental and quite intensive and wildlife and scented, and I've got food. It's a food forest garden as well. Kind of snuck in some food forest elements, so it's a real kind of combination garden. This is not like it's not like a fully fledged forest garden. What I would say is a fully productive forest garden, but it is still a very beautiful. Well, it is a beautiful space anyway, but it will be a very beautiful enclosed wildlife centered garden. So it's a nice project, and I make most of I make a living from doing garden designs. So this is actually really good, because I really think it's the crossover between ornamental and wildlife and food forest gardening. That's really where it's at. You can have everything together. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I have got I've got the slides online. Any of the slides that you come across, that I've done loads and loads of live streams and loads of talks and all sorts of things. If you ever want to look at the notes, press the P, and then you will see the notes. The notes will come up, so there'll be some extra stuff in there. This talk will always be online, natureworks.org.uk/talks/Clifftop, and yes, and this is my website. So if you want forest garden design, ornamental wildlife, food forest garden design doing, go to my website and have a look at the stuff that I've been working on. And yeah, let's get cracking. Let's do this. Oh, that's a point. I can do this as well. Hold on. So I just need to. Okay. Ta-dung. So this talk is really in three parts. The first part is what I call the cake garden, and that was supposed to be a moon cake, by the way, which is a Chinese celebratory cake for the Mid-Autumn Festival. I'll talk about that in a minute. I call forest gardening is really the cake garden, because you can have all of it and you can eat it. I'll talk about my design process, the tools that I'm using, and how I put things together. And then I'm going to look at the actual garden itself and the stages of the garden. And for that, I've got some screenshots and photographs that I'll be looking at. Okay, so the cake garden. There's lots of notes in here. Oh, it's so funny. I call it the cake garden because it's a garden where you can have ornamental gardening, wildlife gardening, and productive food forest gardening as well, all kind of combined into one space. It's not like you have to make a choice. You can have everything together, because plants are plants, and plants are very flexible. They don't care. If you pick the berries off a shrub, it doesn't really matter if it's an ornamental shrub like a Mahona aquifolium, Oregon grape, for example, or it could be an oleaster, an autumn olive, or it could be, oh goodness me, a holly which you're growing for the berries for birds, or you're growing it for butterflies, for the holly blue. So the food forest doesn't really matter with a food forest, whether with a garden, whether the items are it's a human construction. The garden is a human construct, and the different types of gardens are a human construct. You can have all three together. Okay, this is the kind of key thing I want to get across: is you can have your cake and your garden cake and eat it. So this is the wildlife side of it. Also, the wildlife side I think is really, really important, and it doesn't really come up so much in Martin Crawford's book about the importance of using native plants. But I think just generally in gardening, it's really, really important to use native plants, because native plants have co-evolved with native wildlife. So it's really, really important thing, part of a forest garden. Because a forest garden is a garden that uses natural processes for keeping the garden healthy. So it provides its own fertility, and it provides its own pest control. And it does this by providing food and habitat for not only for the predators, but also for the insects themselves. So sounds a really odd thing, but what you want to do with a forest garden is you want insects to eat your plants, because you want to encourage wildlife to eat the insects, and then you keep it in a balance. This is the whole kind of point of it. It's a balanced ecosystem. This is what we're aiming at, rather than having human intervention with pesticides and herbicides and artificial fertilizers and putting them all into the garden. We have the technology, i.e. we can work out which plants to put in to create a self-sustaining garden. So yes, wildlife actually plays a fundamental role in a forest garden, and I think it really ought to play a fundamental role in all gardens as well. So I really want to see a big shift in attitudes towards gardening throughout the whole of the horticultural industry. This isn't to say that you can't have non-natives, but it is to say that you put wildlife and natives at the top of the list when you're considering the plants for a garden. For this garden as well, not only is it got the clients, they're brilliant. They're really, really brilliant clients to have. Actually, I must admit, I have landed on my feet with them, because they really want to encourage wildlife. So it's when I'm talking about putting in native hedging, they're saying, yes, will that encourage the birds? And so yes, it will. You're having a mixed native hedging, very kind of carefully chosen, but this will encourage the wildlife in the garden. So they're very keen on having on wildlife. They want it as an ornamental garden, because they're using the space. There's going to be a kind of pergola structure there, and they'll be using the space to be in and to sit down in and get away from everything. And scented is a really key thing, which I think is absolutely fascinating, because it's not something I've looked at. Coming from a forest garden perspective, this isn't something I've looked at very much. So the scented element is it's part of the ornamental element in some respects, but then it gets you exploring and discovering different plants, different native plants as well, that are fragrant. So, there's just a couple that spring to mind. I'll have planting plans and everything at the end. But there's one particular plant, is the European barberry, which is a Berberis vulgaris. Let's type it out for you. Berberis vulgaris, and it's a common kind of hedging plant, fairly common hedging plant. Grows to about 3 meters. It's got big prickles on it, big thorns. I've actually been pruning a Berberis, a different Berberis, a barberry in the garden, and they've got wicked thorns, and I've just really pranged myself because I can't get hold of any vegan gauntlets. So, but it's a lovely plant. Yellow flowers in spring, and this most beautiful fragrance. Really, I was quite amazed like how stunning it was. And it's a good hedging plant as well. Double thickness, kind of deciduous, so you kind of want to have a double thickness hedge if you can. But I want to squeeze one of these in because it's scented, and it kind of fits in with the garden, with the wildlife aspect and the scented aspect. So and also it's very good for habitat as well, because there's so many thorns on the plant. It's a good protection against predators, for predators of birds. And then also it's going to be a productive garden too. So productive you can use in a broad sense, so like in a forest garden. You can either, you're having a forest garden where you are harvesting perennial vegetables and nuts and fruit, and it's very much focused on that. But you can have productive in the sense of it's a good space to be in, a good place to be in, and you have more not I say niche, but just different sorts of productivity. So in this garden I've suggested, with the pergola structure, using having tea plants, because they're talking about having cups of tea up there. And I think it'd be fantastic if you're up there and you want to have you want to make a cup of tea. You can actually literally grab a couple of leaves off of a shrub, or from a mint in a pot, or a tea plant, or a black currant, or a New Jersey tea, or there's a whole range of different shrubs that you can use, different plants that you can use for making tea. So it can be really productive in that sense. And then also I've put in some really lovely shrubs as well, like fruiting shrubs and herbs. So there's some rosemary, there's an aronia, there's all blueberries. There's all sorts of different things for their ornamental value as well as much as their fruiting value, but there will be fruit on them too. So it's great. It's a lovely blend of different kind of, I wouldn't say styles, but different types of gardening. So this is an Osmanthus heterophyllus, which is holly olive. It's a Chinese plant, and the reason that's in there, because originally I was going to put in a mooncake and have the mooncake. It's a mooncake garden, and then I started finding out about the festival of the moon, because mooncake it's like pastry case, and it has like lotus bean paste or other sorts of paste inside, quite a dense pastry cake, and it's for the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival in China, and it's I don't know how to pronounce it, Chang'e, the Chinese moon goddess of immortality. I actually meant to show you. I have a ring with the Chinese goddess of immortality on there, so that's who it's for. So it's actually quite funny that this is on the 15th day of the 8th lunar month, which is in the Chinese lunar calendar. That month is called Osmanthus, which is after this shrub, and this shrub is fragrant, and this kind of suits perfectly the garden. So it's kind of quite a lot of diverse but linking ideas there. And yeah, so I think it's kind of fascinating. If you hit the P key, you'll get the links up on you get the links to the Moon Festival on there. So I do want to kind of emphasize here, like it's the native where possible. This is the berries of a Viburnum opulus, a Gelder rose, and a beautiful 5 meter high, beautiful shrub, native to the UK, and beautiful flowers, fragrance, berries, windbreak. You know, it's an all round performer, as they like to say. And I think it's a fine judgment call about, particularly like in a forest garden and an ornamental garden, but it's a fine judgment call about native where possible is my mantra. But obviously this has to fit in with what the client wants. And obviously, yeah, I don't think it's an all or nothing. All native plants, or just ignore native plants altogether. I think it depends on the context and what you're doing. Far better to get people used to the idea of using native plants because they support wildlife, and then get them supporting that generally, and seeing the importance of native habitat in the countryside as a whole, and where the garden sits in the grand scheme of things, And then that means people are more likely to engage locally and more likely to engage with wildlife groups, and more likely that sets them off on a route for that. So I think you can be quite puritanical about your attitude towards native plants, and it can be counterproductive. So I think just guiding people that way. I'd love to have, I'm going to create a native wildflower garden here with, and it's going to be a herb garden as well. So there'll be some non-natives in there, but the whole purpose of the garden is it's herbs and native wildflowers, and that's going to be this little section over there that I'm going to work on. But for other people, for other clients, I have to adapt to it as well. The reason why native is so impossible, as I said before, it's because native plants have co-evolved with wildlife, and what you want to do is you want to encourage insects. So, oops, hold on. You want to encourage insects where you possibly can. So, by having native plants, you have a food source for insects, and that's what you want to. That's what you want to really concentrate on. Is insects. And oh dear lordy, sorry, my computer's playing up. So I was trying to show you something and I can't show you because my computer's not working. Because they co-evolve with you by providing food for insects, you're providing food for everything. You're providing food for birds, you're providing food for other mammals, because everything eats insects and insects eat plants. It's this great big food web. And that's what we want to look at, is supporting the kind of foundations of life. Yep. So native where possible, because it's co-evolved with wildlife. Doug Tallamy, he's brilliant chap over in America. I still haven't read any of his books. I feel really bad about it. Professor Doug Tallamy, he's an entomologist and a wildlife campaigner over in America, and he's trying to get people to get and have wildlife gardens. So have a look at his stuff. It's North America, but it's the same principles apply. And he had a 2/3 for the birds as a saying that he came up with, and I think it's the bulk. So what you're looking for is a bulk and a diversity, and then you can use this you can have that bulk and that diversity in the ground cover and the hedges. So not necessarily the specimen shrubs and the specimen trees, but in hedges and around the place. So for example, I want to put in a hedge, a fast-growing screening hedge, and I'm going to be using it's a cross, but it's a Salix viminalis cross, a willow cross, and willow's a great early flowering, fantastic for wildlife in that respect. What's it called? Salix? It's a Bowles hybrid. So this Salix viminalis, this is a native willow, I think, but it supports a lot of wildlife. So. It's that where you can get native plants in there, or kind of close to native plants, or hybrids with native plants, and for the bulk. Okay, so let's just want to talk very quickly now about my design process. This is a bit bare. Oh yeah. So first of all, I'm very excited. First of all, I do a site visit, and I will come along and look at the site and write up a report. So I'll charge for doing this and making basic suggestions about what you can do with the garden. The second part then is if the client's happy, then I'll go along. You don't have to have a report, but if you do, we'll write one up, and then you can take it to the next stage, which is me making a quote for the garden. And there's quite a bit of work involved in putting together a quote, but you essentially look at the garden as a whole, estimate how long it will take to put in different features, and roughly how many plants, and then you put a quote together, submit the quote, and then the client says yes, and then you go fantastic, and you start working on it, and then it's a fine balance, because you don't want to quote too much, and because you won't make any money on it, but you don't want to quote too much because you become uncompetitive. But you want to quote enough so that you're going to cover your costs and you're going to make some money out of it to be able to live day to day sort of stuff. So that's quite a tricky balancing act, but it's kind of good. Then when the client says yes, we'll go back again, and I'd actually measure up as well. So if I'm doing remote design, there'll be an awful lot of there'll be a vast number of kind of photographs and videos and if it's a local designer somewhere I can get to, even if I can only get there once, it's actually worth its weight in gold to actually be on site. And I'll make notes and take measurements, and then kind of create a design from that, and then do create a design. And then the key thing really is communication, keeping in touch with the client and saying, this is what I'm thinking about, these are the costs that are involved, this is what I'm thinking about, is this what you want? Yeah, it's not because like design, like so much, like, yeah, it's like kind of any service really, it's not about me, it's about what the client wants and what the budget is and what fits. So that's the kind of next process then, is to do some sketches and to do a design. And I kind of sketch in CAD, and I sketch in pencil and pen and whatever suits, and it'll be like marker pens. Marker pens are actually really brilliant for sketching as well, because they're all vague, and this kind of area and that kind of area you can do stuff on. And then I make online notes as well. So the online notes, these are the online notes for the Clifftop garden, and really handy. So there's an introduction, this is the site, the plant, and this is the intention, and a list of features and species for different areas, and sketches. Oh, that's interesting, my images have gone out of kilter. And then I've also do, as part of the process as well, if the client's happy with it, I will do a series of live streams. So I'll talk about the work that I'm doing, and it's actually quite handy for the client, because they can see this is the work that I'm up to at the moment, and this is the progress that you're having for the work. So not only do I do that, I haven't done the schedule yet. This is something I need to do in the next. There's a very kind of basic schedule here, but also I'll do a schedule as well, depending on the size of the job. But also I use Pinterest a fair bit to put together ideas of different images and different features, and say, oh, this is the kind of, is this the kind of water ball that you want? So and the client can add photographs and ideas up there as well. And then oh, that's going to take forever and a day to load up. Oh no, well, you know what Pinterest looks like. So, and the other key thing that I have going on is a spreadsheet, and as part of this is an invaluable part of the process. Well, I'll just show you this is a screenshot of the spreadsheet. I can't actually show you the real spreadsheet because my computer is so old it won't cope with it. But the spreadsheet just says this is the name, the botanical name, and which bed it's going in, what it's doing, the function of it, whether it's a native or not, height and width, area, and that'll be for ground cover plants, the quantity, and then I'll get into the cost of it as well. So how much it costs per plant, and how much it will be in as a subtotal. And then I'll keep there should be a ground running total over here as well. So I've got a running total of the total cost of plants. So the budget for this job, the Clifftop garden, is £1,000 for all the plants, and yep. So I've just come in just slightly over, but I'll work it out so it'll be less. So that's a really important part. And as you can see, there's quite a few plants there as well. It's quite an involved process, but it's really important to be able to plan out the plants that you're having, because you don't want to end up with massive great big gaps and go, oh, well, I didn't think of, where's this plant gone? You need to be quite organised to sort it out. So from a garden designer's point of view, this is invaluable, and then from a client's point of view, you can actually see what it is that I'm doing. There's quite a lot of transparency involved there as well. So with the garden stages, yep. So this is the garden. Oopsie, this is the garden stages. So first of all, yep, I just want to talk about I'm not sure how well this will come across. This is the first thing that I did, was satellite photograph of the garden. The house is here. And it's a satellite photograph of the garden, and the garden is this area here. Yeah. So that's the first thing, is just get a rough idea what kind of space we're talking about. And I was quite surprised actually how large the space was. There is some ordnance survey data. There's a website called Ground Stability, and again, it's just kind of useful to give you an overview. But the best thing you can do is actually to get down there and take photographs. So this is midway along the garden. So, and it's looking at this. This is a garage here belonging to this house, and the garage overlooks the garden. So one of the first things, first thing you say is, okay, well, we need to put in a screening hedge here. So that's kind of top of the list of things to do. And what you'll find is when you're designing a space, there's stuff that needs to be done, and this is why you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, how will this work out? What plants need to go where? And that's quite an obvious thing. But this is why it helps so much to be able to go on site. So that's the garage overlooking the garden. This is the garden here. There's a bit of a cliff here, and there's going to be a hedge along the back, and a hedge all the way along there. And this is the view down. I was just checking out the soil for the there's going to be a fence, a post and rail fence, which will be beautiful. And this is the view down onto the road from the garden. So, and then this photograph shows you the original. This is when the house was being built. Shows you the actual. This is why it's a clifftop garden. It's been taken out from this part here. It really is on top of this cliff. So yes, it's quite a lot of work. So the first things that I've been getting on with then was just to do a rough outline and kind of work out the area, and then divided it up into different parts and saying, oh, well, this will be the main part here with a pergola summer house type thing here. This is going to be a standing structure with a roof on it, but just like four posts into the ground. And made out of roundwood. Then there's a steepish slope with going down to a kind of plateau here, and then there's a cliff face, kind of quite a steep bank along the bottom there. And the process is, I went down there and then I measured up, and then you start to put trees in, and then you start to say, okay, just using I use a satellite, and there's an existing cherry tree here. This is where I want to put a strawberry tree there, and this is where the lawn will be. And it's just kind of broad brush strokes, and you can do that with a sketch, or you can do that with CAD. Doesn't really make much difference. And then I went down and I started measuring up. So this is a screenshot of a live stream I did for it, but this is me, this is my scribbles about the kind of space and how wide things are. And again, not massive, it's accurate as best you can, but the idea was here, as you can see, it's quite explanatory, that you have a path. The entrance is down here where my face is. The path curves around, so it's got three kind of loops on it. 1, 2, 3 loops. And it's not a direct route to the pergola, and you're using screening plants, and this way it kind of makes the garden bigger because you're having to move around and you're changing your position. Yep. So it's not like you go straight to the pergola and that's it, and you won't look at anything else. If you have to move your body, then you take in more of the garden. So it's rather like a Japanese garden in that respect. That a Japanese tea house, apparently the tradition was to have the path meandering to the house, so it slows you down, so you're not like going there, sitting down, it takes you time to get there. And it's the same kind of thing that I'm doing, with this garden. And then you can see, it doesn't really look so good. Continue scroll. Oh, sorry. Can I just zoom in? Please, can I zoom in? And so then, I put the path in, and then you get the idea. Okay, and so I get the sketches, and then I create the path, and I got the pergola, and I say, oh, this is a tapestry lawn. So you can see it starts to take shape. And again, this is the thing. I really think if you're designing a garden, paths and areas. Yeah. Paths and areas. Start with a path. Paths are like the kind of structure that they form the shape and they form the areas. So paths are a really useful design tool to be able to get you to then start to create different areas of the garden, and then you can look at where you are in those different areas, and then you can shape the planting in those different areas. And then it kind of gets a bit more whoopsie. So I start putting the plants in. There's Saskatoon, there's the Amelanchier, there's witch hazel, beautiful reddish witch hazel. So the combination of native plants and and ornamental scented plants. So there's a Tennessee Tarentum myrtle, which is basically it's a subspecies of common myrtle, and that's that one here. Can I zoom in? Yeah. And it's an evergreen. It's a screening, using it as a screening hedge, not too high. It's a North American. I think it's a North American. Yeah, North American plant, but it's scented as well. So it's doing all these different things. Bowles hybrid. This is a Viminalis cross, the Bowles willow, and that's kind of native. Oh, and then a Saskatoon Amelanchier alnifolia that has flowers, fruiting, ornamental. Witch hazel is scented. There's a bent underneath the witch hazel as well. So Gelder rose, want to have a specimen Gelder rose. That's native, but again scented with berries. Beautiful autumn colour. So strawberry tree, beautiful, non-native. Well, it's Mediterranean, non-native, but it has edible fruit and beautiful flowers, and evergreen as well, so provide some structure. And then there's dogwood. So I have a Bowles willow hedge along the back, screen, because it's fast growing, and it will screen the garage. And then in front of that, I'm using dogwood, a native dogwood, Cornus sanguinea, blood twig dogwood, I think it's called. And there are cultivars of that as well, so possibly use a cultivar. And then a winter flowering honeysuckle, European barberry, as I was talking about before. And then there's, I haven't done this area, so I haven't filled. This is the kind of structure. So I've done the pergola, put the paths in, and then you start to put the hedging and the hedging in as well. So it's a kind of process, and trying out different plants in different areas. It's part of what's really good to do when you're designing the garden as well, is to do some sketching. And I've kind of learning how to sketch. It's called, I think it's called Traveller Sketchbook. I can't remember. It's on Udemy. I'm doing a course on Udemy, and it's just very, very useful. And my sketching skills aren't all that, but it's just useful to be able to say, oh, there's a pergola, there's the fence in place, there's the garage hidden by the tall willow and the Cornus shrubs here, and you can read it. You can actually get a sense. This is the strawberry tree here. This is a viburnum. That's a cherry tree. That's the Amelanchier, or might be. There's some more Bowles hybrid willows. So it's, you kind of start to visualize the plants that you're putting in from particular, slightly different angle, but that's the kind of thing that you want to be able to do. And then likewise, we're here. This is a view from the house. Oops. Come on then. Oh, it's not showing me. If for some reason, thanks. For some reason, it's not going to show me that one. So this is the view from the house, and the God, it's just stopped working. Isn't that brilliant? It's a bit of a shame. You can see the thumbnail underneath, and it's really, really important that by doing the sketching, you put plants in. You go, well, that doesn't quite work, so I'll zoom into the thumbnail, and then you can see here. I'll go, well, there's a big old gap, and I was thinking of using hemp agrimony, which is Eupatorium agrimonia. No, Eupatorium cannabinum or something. And oopsie, hold on. Hemp. Oh no, it's not going to work, is it? So I was thinking of putting hemp agrimony in here, but I can't really do that because it's deciduous. It dies. It's deciduous. It's a herbaceous perennial. It dies back. So I'm going to put a rose in there instead, and it's much more of a focal point. So that'll be a rose. That's what you can see when you're going up the steps, but also when you're looking from the window as well. This is the plant that you can see with the path going round, and then this is the myrtle Tarentum myrtle hedge here. So it just provides that bit of screening and a bit of structure, which will be there throughout the winter as well. So that's the kind of reason why sketching is so good. And also, you know, there's a whole load of, it needs some cover down here, and this needs a fence here, and it needs some cover going down over the cliff as well. So it kind of goes, oh, I need to remember that and work on that particular part. So it makes you look at the photograph, makes you look at the scene, and then think about the plants that you can use there. And then likewise, this is the view. This is the $1 million view from the pergola. What will be the pergola? This is the path that goes round, and again, I was going to have the path the bed curving round to the right with the tapestry lawn over here, but again, I start doing the sketching, and you go, oh, okay, it's better to put the lawn going around to the right, and then do realise that there is a bit of there's some kind of gaps here, and do you want to put plants? I might be putting more plants by screening plants in front of the fence, for example. So it changes your kind of thoughts about what could go in by using sketches. And then we end up with a whole load of a big old planting plan. So I'm not sure, this probably isn't. This is fairly recent one. And yeah, there's dead wood. It's brilliant. I mean, there's an awful lot of plants. So I'm using a lot of native plants as herbaceous perennials for flowers. And then I'm using a kind of mixture of edibles and a mixture of ornamentals as well. But and then you start getting into like specific cultivars. So there's the chokeberry, Aronia prunifolia. It's a Aronia prunifolia cross, and it's quite small. So it's 1.5 meter high by 2 meters wide, and that's one of the smallest Aronias that you can get. But that fits that space. So you start looking around for different plants that will fit different spaces. New Jersey tea, because you can use it for tea. Lemonade bush, because you can make lemonade out of it. It's a Rhys aromatica. And it's aromatic. Lavenders and oregano, native oregano, dwarf oregano, blueberries. There's a lot of stuff. Greek sage I'm kind of interested in using, and then woodruff, and there's a whole range of different native plants. But I won't I won't talk about the detail of them. But just suffice to say that it's a good mix of native plants, native hedging, and also ornamental and scented stuff as well. And then finally, for the steep bed down at the bottom here, it has bits of grass and buddleia growing out of it, and what I'm going to be doing is to get it's made out of coir. It's a matting, I can't remember what it's called, eco matting or eco rolls, and I'm going to peg it out, metal pegs, peg out, and it's just going to I'll cut what I can off, but I don't want to pull loads of grass out of the bank, because that will destabilize it, and then it'll start to fall apart, because it's kind of made out of soil which has been put on there. So you put on this big thick coir mat, peg it out, and then I will plant that up with fescues, so like a type of grass, but like they're low growing grasses, and they're non-competitive, but they still have decent roots, so that will provide the stability. And then a mixture of wildflowers. I was going to use wildflower plugs, but I can't really afford it for the space. It's about 25 square meters, and haven't got the budget for it. So I'll be using wildflower seed, but I'm not that fussed really, because it's going to be quite random, that bank. But the main thing is not to have bramble, not to have buddleia, and then to have like small delicate grasses and a mixture of wildflowers. So that's what I'll put in. I'll put them in. I'll make up some sort of clay compost mix, and then put the fescue seed and the wildflowers in there, and then just smear them into the coir and before pegging it out. So I'll be actually putting it in situ, or I might peg it out and then put the soil on. See how it goes. I don't really know about that. So that's a very exciting element. Ooh, there we go. So that's all that. So thank you very much for watching. I have got a Zoom meeting thing at the I've got a Zoom meeting at the if you want to come along, let me know. How will you let me know? Email me hello@natureworks.org.uk, and I will email you straight back as I get the Zoom meeting up and running. So if there is anyone who wants to join in, talk about forest gardens and stuff, please do, and I shall see you again soon. Thank you.